Fusion Mobile, quality e-learning experience on the go.
Soil fertility and management. Soil fertility describes the ability of the soil to supply all the essential plant nutrients in adequate amounts as required by the crops. There are certain factors which affect the availability of nutrients to plants in the soil, and they are burning, effects of leaching, crop removal, excess of other nutrients, soil pH level, and oxidation. Burning. Burning can be disadvantageous to the soil because carbon, sulfur, and phosphorus will be lost to the atmosphere in gaseous form. Burning destroys organic matter. Take 2. Burning destroys organic matter, which is very rich in plant nutrients. It also destroys soil microbes, which help in improving soil structure. Effects of leaching. Leaching is the washing away of the nutrients into the subsoil region. It is facilitated by water movement, most especially in sandy soils. The excess water can drain away some dissolved cations and then accumulate in layers beyond the reach of the plant roots. Crop removal. As crops grow, they take up the available nutrients from the soil, thereby depleting the supply of soil nutrients. Such depleted nutrients will not be available to subsequent crops. To replenish the nutrients, fertilizers must be added to the soil. Excess of other nutrients. For instance, the application of large quantities of phosphate fertilizer like triple super phosphate affects the availability of micronutrients such as iron and zinc by combining with them to form insoluble phosphates. Soil pH level. This refers to hydrogen ion concentration in the soil. Soil with more hydrogen ion concentration than hydroxyl ions are said to be acidic. They are alkaline if the hydroxyl ions exceed the hydrogen ions. If soil is acidic, some elements like manganese and iron dissolve in large quantities and become toxic to the plants. If the soil is alkaline, these elements will not dissolve and will not be available. Highly acidic soils affect the activities of soil microorganisms. Oxidation. Oxidation is the breakdown of soil organic matter in the presence of oxygen. Ammonium compounds in the soil may be oxidized to ammonia and nitrates reduced to oxides of nitrogen by denitrifying bacteria. The gaseous nitrogen from these reactions escape into the atmosphere, thereby reducing the nitrogen content of the soil. Ways of maintaining soil fertility. When soil fertility falls, there are different methods of improving the soil productive capacity, and these methods must be found. In agriculture, fertility is maintained using rotational cropping, fallowing, cover cropping, mulching, organic manures, and fertilizers. Rotational cropping. Rotational cropping is the practice of growing different crops in a particular order on the same piece of farmland for many years. The circle is planned in such a way to restore nutrients removed from the soil. This situation is similar to an individual who withdraws money continuously from his savings account without putting some more money back into the savings. A system of crop changing, that's rotation, is therefore necessary and must be planned in such a way as to ensure that the nutrients are not completely used up. Some principles of crop rotation include 1. Manure should be applied at least once in a rotation of 4 years. 2. The rotation may be one of a 3, 4, or 5 year course. Shallow-rooted crops should follow deep-rooted crops. Crops for a rotation should be adaptable to the area, soil, and climate. Crops that are affected by same disease or insect attack should not follow each other. Crops of the same family should not be made to follow each other, and the rotation should include a legume, since legumes help to increase soil fertility through the increase of soil nitrogen. The advantages of crop rotation include 1. It helps to maintain the fertility of the soil through the cultivation of leguminous crops in the rotation. It helps to control pests, that's weeds, insects, and diseases. It facilitates the efficient and economic use of soil nutrients. The grasses and legumes in the rotation help to check erosion. It helps farmers to produce different kinds of crops. It acts as an insurance against crop failure, and also it is adopted where there is scarcity of land. The disadvantage is that if it is not well planned and executed, crop rotation can lead to erosion, it can lead to low productivity, and it can lead to exhaustion. Fallowing. Bush fallow system involves the growing of crops on a piece of land until it is exhausted and then allowed to go back to bush for 6 to 12 years before it is used again. It is a modified form of shifting cultivation, and it is practiced in many parts of the tropics, especially in sparsely populated districts, that is where there is low population. When land is allowed to lie fallow, plant food has time to form in the soil as a result of humus accumulation. The soil gradually builds up its fertility chiefly through the activities of higher plants and microorganisms, and plant foods are returned to the soil. Advantages of fallowing can be seen in its ability to prevent the spread of crop diseases, pests, and weeds, since the activity is reduced during the fallow period. Fallowing is a simple method of bringing back soil fertility. It does not require any technical knowledge, and plants which grow during the fallow period improve the soil structure. Their disadvantages include 1. Large amount of land which could be put to productive use is left fallow. Thick bushes are difficult and expensive to clear, and also it does not encourage large-scale farming. Owing to these disadvantages, fallowing method of restoring fertility has become less popular. Cover cropping. Cover crops are close growth of plants which are useful as a cover for the soil and for protection against the action of the sun, and also to prevent erosion arising as a result of heavy rainfall. For example, the Centrosema pubescens, the Calapogonium muconoids, and the Pureria physaloids. The advantages are: 1. They improve beneficial chemical activity by minimizing temperature extremes due to shading. They reduce soil erosion by protecting the surface from heavy rain. 3. They enrich the soil with fallen leaves and stems. 4. They reduce weeds by overshadowing. 5. They help improve and stabilize humidity by reducing soil evaporation, and also they increase the population of the soil microorganisms by making the habitat more tolerable. Their disadvantages are: 1. They increase the rate of water loss from the soil through transpiration, and also they compete with the crops for water, particularly during the dry season. The use of cover crops in the tropics is yet very much limited due to some difficulties, which are: 1. The cost of the exercise is not all that cheap. 2. Lack of machinery, as plowing is better done with tractors. 3. The rate of decomposition of organic matter is very high. And 4. There is pressure on land due to increasing population. Mulching. Mulching, as we've earlier discussed, is usually made from plant materials or loose soils. Mulching helps to increase soil fertility when the materials decay. Mulching also helps to prevent soil erosion by protecting the soil from the sun, which reduces the loss of moisture by evapotranspiration from the soil, wind, and rain. Organic manures. In order to prevent the soil from being exhausted and subsequently barren, we add various materials which replace the nutritional elements in the soil. Materials added to make up the deficiency of a soil is called a manure. Organic manures are manures prepared from plant and animal refuse. Some substances help to improve the soil condition for plant growth. They are natural sources of nutrients. They contain high levels of humus and are generally quite cheap. Organic manures contain several kinds of plant nutrients, particularly nitrogen and phosphorus. There are four main types of organic manure. They are the green manure, the animal or farmyard manure, that's the FYM, the compost manure, and the humus manure. Green manure is the plowing of crop plants, particularly leguminous plants, into the soil while they are still living. The materials decay in the soil and become manure in about a fortnight, that is, in about 2 weeks later. Green manure derives its name from the green succulent plant materials from which it is prepared. The advantages of green manure are: 1. It increases the humus content of the soil and so improves the physical condition, soil aggregate, and bulk density of the soil. Nutrients from the subsoil are returned to the topsoil when the crops are plowed. Nitrogen is added into the soil. Green manure reduces the loss of nutrients through soil wash and leaching. It also reduces the rate of evaporation from the soil surfaces by providing cover. Their disadvantages include: 1. The green manure may absorb the nutrients but may not release them in time for the succeeding crops. Some of them may secrete injurious substances which may harm subsequent crops. Fertilizers may be cheaper to buy than growing green manure. Certain conditions, especially in dry areas, must be fulfilled before growing green manure crops. For example, there must be adequate supply of water, and there should be enough water for decomposition of dug-in materials. Green manure may also bring about pests or diseases. Qualities of green manure crops are: 1. Green manure crops should be free from insect pests and diseases. Growth should be rapid and crops plowed in when succulent. Green manure crops do not require much fertilizer. It is often used as food and feed. It is grown at a time when no other crop is grown in the farm. Seeds are able to germinate without treating it with chemicals, and crops are able to produce seeds easily, rapidly, and cheaply. Fertilizers. Fertilizers or inorganic manures are chemical substances, usually in the form of powders, pellets, granules, or crystals, which are added to the soil to improve its fertility. They are usually more concentrated than organic manures and are used to provide specific nutrients to the soil, unlike the organic manures. We have two main types of fertilizers. They are the single or simple or straight fertilizer and the compound or mixed or complete fertilizer. The single, simple, or straight fertilizer is a fertilizer which contains only one of the macro or major elements required by plants. For example, we have nitrogen fertilizers whose main function is promotion of vegetative growth. We have the phosphorus fertilizer, which is necessary for the production of seeds and roots. The potassium fertilizer helps plants grow to maturity as well as in fruit production. The compound, mixed, or complete fertilizer is a fertilizer which contains two or more major nutrients such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. In the storage and handling of fertilizers, fertilizers should be stored in plastic bags in dry places while waiting to be used. They should not be mixed until just before using, or else they may chemically react with one another and spoil, either by releasing important gases or by getting hard like concrete. They should be applied as soon as possible to avoid losing its quality. It should not be spread during dry season, but only when needed for immediate growth of the crop concerned. Fertilizer should not be allowed to touch clothing. The hands should be thoroughly washed after touching fertilizers, and fertilizer should not come into direct contact with food, and all materials used in its application should be washed well after used. There are different methods of fertilizer application. We have the broadcasting, the ring application, the row application, and the band placement. Broadcasting involves spreading the fertilizer uniformly over the soil surface before plowing or planting. It can be done manually or mechanically by a means of machine called the fertilizer distributor. The advantages of broadcasting is that it saves time and labor, and it is the easiest way of spreading fertilizer, while its disadvantages are: 1. It encourages weed growth. 2. It is wasteful. 3. Much of the fertilizer does not actually get used by plants since they are lost due to volatility. Runoff. Ring application involves the spreading of a determined quantity of the fertilizer in a ring form or in a circle about 15 centimeters away from the plant. The fertilizer is never allowed to touch the leaves or the stems of the crops involved. If the fertilizer touches the plant, it would burn and kill the plant. The advantages of ring method are: 1. It avoids wastage, and 2. It makes it easier for the roots to absorb the fertilizer nutrients quickly. And their disadvantage is that it is a very slow process as one plant is applied at a time. Row application. In row application, the fertilizer is applied in a row or straight line a few centimeters away from the plant. This method is used only for crops planted in rows or straight line. Drilling machine can be used in applying fertilizer in this way. The advantages are: 1. It is a very suitable method but can only be used on small gardens. 2. It places the nutrients within the immediate reach of the root hairs of the crop, and their disadvantages are: 1. It constitutes high labor on big farms, and mechanization of the method is not yet very much achieved because of lack of adequate machinery to handle it. Band placement. In band placement, fertilizers are applied in bands or a band made by the side of a plant. This method is used when the plants are far away from one another. The advantages are: 1. It saves fertilizer. 2. It encourages vigorous and uniform growth of crop plants. And 3. The placement of fertilizer is very suitable for individual plants. Their disadvantage is that it is time wasting. We also have the top dressing, the foliar application, and the fertigation. Top dressing involves the fertilizer being applied around the base of a well-established plant in order to give it a boost at a certain point in its development. The foliar application involves the spraying on the aerial parts of the plant a very dilute solution of a fertilizer. It would also be sprayed on the soil around the base, and it is mainly used on vegetables. Fertilizers to be applied in this form include the urea and the ammonium sulfate fertilizers. Fertigation. Fertigation is a method whereby the fertilizer is applied to the crops along with the irrigation water. This is only done for irrigated crops. In all cases, qualified agricultural experts or workers usually give directions as to which type of fertilizer, the quantity to apply, when to apply it, and the manner of application in respect of each crop.